It's time for Media in Check, and we have Angela Jung joining us in the studio to talk about the latest updates and news related to the media. Good morning, Angela.
Good morning, Paul.
It's lovely to see you here for the very first time for me. Not
Yes.
the first time for you, though.
No, I've seen you on media.
Well, I'm very glad to be filling in today and today only, and I'm really excited to talk with you today. What are we talking about? What are the topics?
Yes, so today's topic is about a wind of change in media law. As you know, Yoon Suk-yeol of People Power Party became the president-elect in the 20th presidential election last week. In the lead up to his inauguration, significant change in the nation's media policies is expected, as media reform policies was one of his major election pledges. The president-elect Yoon pledged 3 challenges to tackle, such as saying no to unreasonable intervention in the media and yes to free media environment, enhancing fairness in broadcasting, and setting up a dedicated organization to promote the media and content industries.
We've got some big promises to talk about. Can we get into a little more detail about these media pledges and the 3 pillars, and also about this sort of relevant education and the human resources sector?
Sure. The new government plans to create a presidential public-private science and technology committee and nominate science and technology experts at high-level positions for the executive branch. As a presidential candidate, President-elect Yoon pledged he will put priority on science and technology and watch relevant policies himself to check the entire progress. This joint committee will be composed of researchers, developers, corporate experts, and science and technology administrators. The committee devises a strategic roadmap for science and technology, and the president will check progress for each milestone.
Then how about education? What's happening there?
Yes, so for education front, the new president is going to establish a practice-oriented school to nurture young digital experts who are going to study on a full scholarship in accordance with his education pledge of cultivating 1 million young digital experts. Longer hours of software education will be assigned to elementary and middle school, and admission quotas for digital-related departments and scholarships will be expanded for universities as well. This approach is viewed as a strategy to be prepared for an era with competitiveness in digital technology as it's the yardstick of wealth. Furthermore, new government aims to complete and export a digital platform government within 3 years of its inauguration and build the world's largest AI cloud computing infrastructure.
It feels like we're diving deep into the digital world with this new president.
Right.
What else is happening with technology?
So additional pledges in the technology sector include expanding the size of information technology purchases in the public sector from 5 trillion won to 10 trillion won, upgrading 5G networks and support industry to lead the way to 6G now technology in global standards. For companies investing in cloud computing R&D, tax deduction benefits will be provided, and the government will provide support for enterprises seeking to secure ways to commercialize 3-nanometer semiconductor technology while promptly conducting tax revision for them so that Korean companies will not lag behind in the global competition.
It does seem like there's going to be a lot of change at a very fast pace when it comes to media policies in Korea. So maybe you can talk us through what the plans of President-elect Yoon are for Korea's media and content sectors.
Yes, so the most notable of his media pledges is to establish a government agency to oversee media policies and a commission as a control tower. According to the relevant industries and the political circle, the president-elect is expected to newly establish a dedicated government agency, tentatively named the Ministry of Digital Transformation. The new ministry will oversee Korea's media and content promotion policies, which are now scattered across different ministries among the Ministry of ICT, Korea Communication Commissions, and the Ministry of Culture, Sports, and Tourism. It's known that the PPP is reviewing a plan to create such an agency under the perception that the incumbent government has made little progress in establishing laws and regulation necessary in responding to rapidly changing media environment, such as the spread of OTT services. Adding the Moon's government's industrial policy direction is unclear. The PPP also assessed that currently media governance is dispersed and there is a tendency of disproportionately focusing on the press media, and that the media has been treated as a subject of regulation, not a subject that needs promoting.
I see. Now, as far as I'm aware, there has been some controversy recently over certain regulations in the media. What's gone on there?
So the controversy is raised regarding the revised Press Arbitration Act with punitive compensation measures and the alternative autonomous regulating body. This self-regulating body was proposed by the media industry as a last resort to avoid any excessive intervention by the authorities and save the industry. But the president-elect clearly expressed his opposition to the revised act by saying it's not desirable to impose punitive measures only on the media. To sum up, President-elect Yoon opposes the current Press Arbitration Act intervention by the government, and he's not in favor of the media's autonomous regulating body either. So he proposed a quasi-judicial arbitrating should come in between. And in this regard, discussions will begin under the new leadership as he begins. And as the prevention of the fake news, he previously pledged in the election campaign that he will devise institutional arrangements so that the false news and malicious distortion issues can be resolved through autonomous regulations.
Well, it's fascinating to see these big changes coming up when it comes to media, but I'm guessing that Korea isn't the only country that is looking to improve its media and content industries. It feels like the whole world is changing all at once.
Right.
What is the reason behind President-elect Yoon's decisions to integrate all these media policies and functions into just one organization?
Yes, the fundamental reason is to be able to better respond to the rapidly changing media environment. As OTT services such as Netflix are expected to expand even further to a large part of the world, Korean cultural content is being at the center of the attention now. But at the same time, Korean OTT companies are not as competitive as overseas companies, raising fairness issues.
Okay, now I'd like to zero in on one thing in particular. You explained before that the President-elect's second media pledge is all about enhancing fairness in public broadcasting. Can you explain exactly what that means, what that's going to be?
Yes, so the new government is expected to rework on the legal system to heighten fairness of the public broadcasting sector. Back in November of last year, President-elect Yoon proposed a board member nomination system determined by a ratio of 7-6 between the ruling and opposition parties, and 2/3 of them should vote in favor when electing a president of broadcasting companies. He also vowed to strengthen the management assessment process for the public broadcasting networks led by KBS and make sure the public can have access to the results, and the ESG obligations will be added to the social obligations held by the companies.
Well, it sounds like all of us in the media are going to be held to account. And certainly with a new president, there are always big changes. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens when he comes into power in May and what the next 5 years holds for media.
Yes.
Thank you so much for bringing this issue to our attention, Angela. And, Rob, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week.